So we've already heard a little bit, India does have its net zero by 2070 targets. We have a 500 gigawatts goal, but we also do have Viksit Bharat 2047, right? So India's in a bit of a balancing act. We need to achieve climate goals, but at the same time, we are also want to become a developed nations. We have economic targets, we have developmental, ambitions, we have social, issues to address. And all of this makes, I think, the speed and the scale of this transformation and transition that India is undergoing, it's very ambitious, but it's also very complex at the same time. Um, One of the key things, in addition to the intensifying energy demand that India has, is also investments. Where is the money going to come for all of this? That's, you frequently hear about that. So we need about $10 trillion globally for renewables. And this is a great opportunity for India to seize the momentum, right, and bring these investments towards India. We have robust market demand, we have rapidly evolving technologies. The government has put in place a lot of ambitious policy frameworks and initiatives. So mobilizing the finance will be a key aspect as well. And, our policies around RPOs, the National Hydrogen Mission, India's carbon market, all of these really signal that the government of India is very, very aware of this and is taking a lot of steps. I think this panel is really wanting to focus on what will it take for us to fast track our goals. At the same time, also being aware that there is an element of energy security, development, etc. So without sort of further ado, let me launch into the questions. And perhaps we'll start with you, Arunji. What do you think are the key regulatory reforms that are needed to make India's grid ready for the large-scale renewables and the hydrogen, projects that are in the pipeline? How do we really integrate this and make the grid ready for this in the next few years?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to share my views. So, as far as the regulatory reforms or further regulatory action that is required, firstly, I would like to say that if you would been following what has been happening in the power sector, so in the last, say, 6 months or so, a lot of action has been there in this area. Say we have, amendment to the GNA rules where we have tried to divide solar and non-solar sectors so that the transmission can be fully utilized. So in the past, electricity derivatives have been introduced. So there have been guidelines about virtual power purchase agreements, and also the rules have been finalized for renewable consumption obligation. So all this has been going on, but definitely the kind of targets that we have set for ourselves, they are very ambitious. So 500 gigawatt by the year 2030. So against that, we are roughly halfway through. So roughly we would be doing 550 gigawatt every year. So this is ambitious because the last year, financial year, we did only around 28 gigawatt. So now going forward, that's quite ambitious. So I would like to divide into 4 or 5 areas where the reforms are required. Firstly, the major challenge that the regulators are facing is with regard to this renewables intermittent nature. So how do we integrate them into the grid is becoming a major challenge. And this is particularly happening during the non-solar hours. So like now we have roughly 120 gigawatt of solar capacity, so out of 500 gigawatt, so that's almost 1/5 of it is coming from the solar. So but unfortunately during the night time that solar capacity is not available to you. On the other hand, with say rising middle class and rising living standards, we are seeing that the peak loads are also occurring during the evening hours, during the night hours, particularly during 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. when the air conditioners are full on, particularly this is happening in the metro cities, and at that time we do not have the solar energy available to you. So there is, the focus is that we need to have flexible sources of generation which can ramp up very quickly. So we have say good amount of thermal generation, but then for the thermal generation there are issues with regard to minimum critical level at which they can operate. So most of the thermal power plants, they can operate at say roughly minimum level about 55% of their capacity. So CA has come up with a regulation that it should be done at 40%, but for that you require investment. CRC as a regulator, we have already provided for some sort of compensation because the thermal generators have to ramp up and ramp down very quickly. But the kind of compensation that has been provided by the regulator, so they are not very happy with it. So again, this is an area which we really need to look at, because going forward as we start adding more and more renewable capacity, so the flexing of the thermal power plants would be required more often, and we have seen that even during the daytime, even with the present penetration of the renewable generation, we are not able to bring down thermal plants, say, below 55% of their capacity. So that time, sometimes we also have to close down or ask our solar or wind generators to, ramp down or say stop their generation. So, and the rates at that time in the power markets are near to zero. So the third area I would like to focus is with regard to, transmission connectivity and the transmission lines. With the ambitious target of the renewable energy, we are finding that already around 40 to 50 gigawatt of renewable capacity is stranded. So, the renewable capacity is ready, but they are not having connectivity to the grid, or even if the connectivity has been provided, the lines are not ready. And this happens due to multiple reasons. There are issues with the acquisition of land, forest clearances, right-of-way issues. So these are the areas which we really need to tackle so that the transmission capacity which is stranded, that is put in place or that is expedited. So another area is with regard to, reforms that can be done in power markets. So we already have introduced electricity derivatives, so which are recently 3 months back, so they were introduced by NSE and MCX. So they are very good risk management instruments that are there. But the penetration of power markets in India is still very low. So only around 7% of the energy is being transacted through the power markets, but when we compare to the developed country, the percentage is as high as 50 to 60% in many of the developed countries. Now with the penetration of the renewables, everyone wants to buy power closer to the real time. So that is why I say around 3-4 years back we introduced real-time market and that has picked up very fast, because for that the person gives your buy bids only 1 hour before the actual delivery. So everyone wants to buy closer to the real time, and that is why power market should play a more important role. At present, around 87% of the power purchase agreements are the long-term power purchase agreements. So that is why the very limited scope is there for power markets. And we also want that, there should be merchant power plants coming up, both for thermal generation and as well as for the renewable generation. And when the merchant power plants are there, then they will be able to sell electricity through the power exchanges. So what is happening at present is, though we are adding renewable capacity, but then we have a intermediary like SECI, which are called, renewable operators who are the intermediaries, and they basically bear the risk. So they get a PPA signed with the generator and also PSA signed with the DISCOMs. But what we are seeing is that even though the projects have been bid, but we are not able to get many of the PSA signed with the distribution companies. There are 2 reasons for it. One is that the power prices of the solar energy are falling, so people wait that. So by the time one tender is finalized, we find that the next tender the prices have come down. So there is an apprehension that whether we should sign at this high rate. But the main issue is that reluctance, because person is not sure, they don't want to enter into this long time kind of an obligation. So that is why we need to see that how we can activate our power markets so that the share is more than what is there at 7% at present. So I think I would end at here. So if you have any supplementary questions, so we can definitely answer.
Thank you, Arunji. And from what I'm hearing is that, the technology is mostly sorted, right? But I think it's a lot of planning, coordination, etc., various forces that kind of need to move to make sure that the actual integration of renewables happens and we're able to use it as much, around the clock, 24 hours, things like that. And that sort of segues into the question I had for you, Dr. Sharma, where we know that the renewable capacity is coming in, and this is a question which just, where Arunji just talked about how will this be integrated. There are some aspects to overcome. So from a planning perspective and your role at the petroleum planning, this thing, what are the sort of, how is energy transition impacting the planning around petroleum and natural gas? And of course, there are questions around how do we ensure that we secure the supply that we need while all the enabling infrastructure, etc., reforms for the renewables comes in, but also how do we eventually kind of slowly start talking about, reducing our reliance on the fossil fuels?
Thank you. To begin with, I will start with from where Mr. Haribhakti left, that we have to work for planet. I quite often differ on this because there are planets other than Earth and none of them has climate of the Earth kind and they are surviving. Even Earth survived when it was wall of fire. It survived when it was ice age. So Earth will survive anyway, whatever is the climate. So we have to bother about ourselves whether we will survive or not. So that should be the objective. Coming to your question, sir, quite often in general discussions we feel like that since renewals are so much focused, oil and gas will go away. So sorry, they are not going anywhere. They are here to stay, and that is particularly true for a country like India, where energy demand is going to grow much faster, much more than any other country in the world. Because we have growth aspirations. We want to be Viksit Bharat by 2047, and our GDP is growing faster than any other large economy. So for that we need energy. Any development needs energy. So if we need energy, it has to be a mix of all kind of energies, and what all kind of outlooks. Only last month BP outlook has come, which was here last week in India. So they say that oil, which is at currently about 250 MTOE, will be more than 418 in next 25 years. Gas will be 3 times or even more than that. So because whatever we do, the kind of energy, total energy we will need, we have to be relied on these energies also a part of on renewals, or in fact forget about oil and gas which you focused on, even coal in terms of volume will go up only from today. It will be around 20%, 30% higher than the current levels. Currently it is around 450, it will be 550 or 560. So renewal, what is the role of renewal is that they will add on to the energy basket, and maybe if renewals were not there, oil, gas or coal could have been the much larger. As far as planning for oil and gas is concerned, in fact, as I said, that since we need almost double of oil today, we have, and we have refineries which meet almost that demand of the country. We will need more refineries, in fact. No refinery is going to get shut down in next 25 years. In fact, we will need many refineries to add on, around 200 MTOs to be added, and one refinery, the biggest one in India is 35, and on average these are 15 MMTPA per annum refineries. So we need many refineries to come up in next 25 years. So planning is being done. Government has, and in fact companies have announced 2 refineries on East Coast and West Coast in last few months. So many more refineries will get announced, and as far as crude for these refineries is concerned, unfortunately, we are not finding much crude in spite of so many efforts by our exploration companies. So import reliance will remain there. Even if we find, they can't meet the demand of country. So for that, security lies in broadening our basket. In last few years, because of whatever reasons, because of geopolitical reasons, we have widened that. We have minimized the reliance on Middle East, and we have gone to Russia, which is being talked about so often, that around 40% of crude now comes from Russia. And recently we have started buying from even US, in spite of being far off. So security lies in that kind of broadening your basket so that you are not dependent on one particular region or country. I will close here and we can come back.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. And now coming to you, Archana, in your role as the head of energy sector reforms at the British High Commission, I think you're in a little bit of a unique role where you're looking at partnerships between the UK and India, right? So in that sense, let me perhaps make this into a two-part question. One is that the UK and India does have a lot of partnership in power sector reforms, renewable energy. There's a lot of collaborations and pilot programs going on. So from your experience, what sort of technologies do you think have really shown promise to be scaled nationally in India? A quick note on perhaps what hinders a large-scale implementation. And the second part being, again, from an international perspective, what one sort of key market or governance reform would you think India needs to really unlock the investments that we need to, grow our renewables?
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting and good afternoon, everyone. So today and yesterday only our Prime Minister landed in India, and so it's all over the internet today. So when it comes to India-UK collaboration, so the ages ago, so both India and UK collaborated, and recently Prime Minister Modi visited UK, and we had signed like UK-India 2035 strategic collaboration, and UK and India signed the free trade agreement as well. So when it comes to collaboration, there is huge opportunity and intent of collaboration, both like inward and outward investments. And when it comes to collaboration, there are usually three parts of it, how we collaborate. So one is definitely through the policy reforms and structural and supporting Government of India in their energy transition journey. And secondly, obviously through the investment. So we have this British International Investments, and we have the capital team, which kind of work very collaboratively with State Bank of India, SEBI, RBI to actually invest a lot in India in the new technologies and like electric mobility, solar, and waste to energies. And third is definitely the trade. I mean, trade is biggest, and in the recent FTA, there has been saying that a lot of trade investment would be done, and there would be like a lot of tariffs, which has been cut down, so it will be like great for both the countries. And for us specifically, I mean, the area which I lead on, so I head up the policy part of energy in British High Commission. So we have these technical assistance programs in collaboration with Ministry of Power and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We have our annual energy dialogue. So this year itself, in February, our Secretary of State, Mr. Ed Miliband, visited India. So we held our energy dialogue with Ministry of Power, Minister Khattar, where a lot of areas were discussed. So there are two technical assistance programs which are currently running. So one is power sector reform programs. It's a long-standing relationship with MNRE and MOP. We also had Aspire program, which is like accelerating smart power and renewable energies in India. So we kind of collaboration dwell from both the distribution side of it, a little bit of electric mobility, industrial energy efficiency, and then ranging to renewables like solar, offshore wind, green hydrogen, and energy storage. So I would name like maybe like 3 to 4, the best collaboration till date with the UK and India. So one is like, we had this power sector reform program. We started it in around like 2017 or 2018, where we created this Center of Electricity Regulation in IIT Kanpur. And that was like one of the kind of CR which was established by UK, obviously under the guidance of CRC. So that has actually taken very well with Government of India. Until then, that there's no looking back. And there have been a lot of collaboration with UK's Ofgem and CRC per se here in India. And second, I would say that we developed the green hydrogen policies for 3 states, Haryana, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. And specifically for Maharashtra, that policy was the first in the country, and it was kind of launched also. And then they're also taking a lot of action on that, and how India is going to produce their 5 million metric tons of target by 2030. So that was very well received, and the collaboration which I must say that we should cherish. And third is definitely around the industrial decarbonization part of it. So when it comes to, larger industry and even the MSME sector. So there is a lot of collaboration which is needed, and energy efficiency is one thing which is usually sometimes ignored, but is very important to actually just to adopt energy efficiency, not just in the industry, but also in the day-to-day lifestyle. So we created a portal called iDiksha, so which is basically a kind of one-stop shop for all industrial energy efficiency, collaboration and technologies, where not just the UK's technology or industries, but like across like US, Europe, and so that platform provide opportunity to actually showcase technologies, and that could actually can do a handshake and a partnership with Indian technologies, and a lot of partnership has been done under that platform. So we did that with Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and it was very well received, and that was launched by our ex-Power Minister of India. And one thing which I would say that it's a challenge as well as opportunity is offshore wind. So UK has a lot of offshore wind, and we had that intention of supporting India in specifically in offshore wind. So that we started developing the tenders for offshore wind. So the first 2 tenders developed was by UK's support, definitely led by MNRE, but then we supported the drafting of those tenders. But unfortunately that didn't kick off, so that definitely is a challenge. So now what we have decided, and it would be like in UK, both the Prime Ministers today will also agree on one thing, that we announced the UK-India Offshore Wind Task Force, which specifically will work on how we can actually collaborate on offshore wind and what has went wrong and what could actually we could do to actually accelerate this offshore wind in India. And definitely one last thing was interconnectors. So interconnector is also because UK is an island. So there's a lot of interconnectors with Europe. So that is kind of, they don't have any choice. But then, yes, so we developed one study like how interconnectors, whole of the industry in UK has done well, and how, what India can actually take advantage of it. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And I can see that our time's up, so unfortunately I don't think we have any time for pass around question, but just as a quick wrap up, I think what we've heard is that there is, there's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of planning that needs to be done. India's energy demand is going, and as how Dr. Sharma pointed out, you know, oil, gas and even coal will continue to play a role for the decades to come before we can fully transition over to a renewables sort of a energy mix. You know, there's a lot of global opportunity, I think, for collaborations, as Archana has pointed out, and at the same time, you know, it's not just a climate imperative, right? It's a domestic imperative. It's better for the country. There are economic opportunities to be had. There are growth opportunities, stories. So in that sense, I think I'll wrap up with saying that we need, in order to be able to actually fast track the renewables, I think all sectors, all stakeholders, industries, government, society, all need to sort of adopt a real positive mindset. But at the same time, we need to have a little bit of urgency, inclusivity. There needs to be a long-term vision about what's not only good for the climate, but also good for the country and its people. And we'll wrap up here. Thank you.